Give this man a hand.
Hi, everybody. Let me start by echoing what Gabriel said about coming out tonight. Greatly appreciated. It's no TV Tuesday at my house, so this really worked out for me. I was diagnosed with epilepsy 2 weeks before my senior year in high school. I found out I was epileptic when I woke up in this dark, dingy gas station storage room with 3 strange men staring at me. I'd never seen them before in my life. I knew I had been drugged and kidnapped. That was the only thing I could think of. I tried to stand up and fight. I mean, this was not happening. And then one of the men put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, you just had a seizure. Do you have epilepsy?" What? Seizure? What is this guy talking about? This is one of the weirdest kidnappings I'd ever heard of. Fortunately, it wasn't a kidnapping. These 3 men jumped into action when I collapsed and had a 4-minute grand mal seizure. They took care of me, and I was so grateful for the kindness they showed. Unfortunately, in the coming days, I found out a great deal about those 2 words, seizure and epilepsy. In fact, 2 days later, at my first neurologist appointment, I had my second seizure. And it was just like the first, a 4-minute grand mal seizure, which is actually an outdated term. Today, they're called tonic-clonic seizures, but essentially what it means is that I go unconscious, and for 4 minutes, every muscle in my body flexes and contracts as quickly and violently as possible. It's the most common seizure people think about when they hear the word epilepsy. And I can tell you it's the most exhausting exercise I've ever participated in. I mean, if you thought 8-minute abs was an efficient workout, try 4-minute seizures. It's a full body workout in half the time. But to give you an idea of how serious this was, I'm going to start my timer here on my watch. I'm going to continue talking, but just keep in the back of your mind that if I were to have a seizure right now, this entire time I would be on the ground, shaking uncontrollably, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. Okay. So my second seizure, back to the neurologist's office. As soon as I woke up, he tells me that I now met the medical criteria to be diagnosed with epilepsy. And with what comes with that are some significant life changes you need to implement immediately. On top of taking your medication as prescribed, you need to minimize your alcohol intake. You need to get 8 hours of sleep every night. And you need to reduce the stress in your life as much as possible. On top of that, I was given a prize that I got to walk out of his office with that day. Because you see, under Texas state law, every contestant on Let's Have a Seizure gets to go home with a suspended driver's license for 6 months. Anybody want to play? No? Okay. So 2 weeks before my senior year in high school, my entire world was turned upside down. I was cursed. I had this new weight around my neck that I didn't know how to carry. But I couldn't get stressed about it. The magnitude of the event didn't really hit me until school started. Word spread like wildfire across campus. I could easily tell who knew and who didn't know. Most of those smiles I was used to seeing on people's faces were now replaced with expressions of sadness and fear. I could understand where they were coming from. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I knew nothing about epilepsy. I still didn't know anybody who had epilepsy. I didn't even know anybody who knew anybody who had epilepsy. I was cursed and alone. But I couldn't get stressed about it. I could logically understand their apprehension, but it didn't mean that the pain and embarrassment I felt was any less real. So that was my senior year of high school. Watching people treat me differently, having every other thought go back to, am I about to have a seizure? because it could truly happen at any moment. I couldn't get stressed about it. Reducing my stress level was the most important mandate my doctors gave me, yet nobody offered to teach me how to do that. I was on my own. I was kind of playing it by ear. And it's not like the repercussions were in some distant future. If I wasn't handling my stress well, the feedback was going to be pretty immediate. I became so focused on stress, I ended up making a career out of it. I'm now a licensed professional counselor, and I help companies all over the country improve their employees' well-being, emotional well-being. It's one of these things that for 20 years I've focused on, and I'd like to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. First one I learned almost immediately. No matter what happens, you have to stay positive. Once I was diagnosed, I started paying attention to my thoughts, and I realized my negative ones were sucking my energy, my mental capacity. Because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about epilepsy. We're talking about mental fatigue. That's when things get pretty bad. And so I substituted them for positive ones. And I started realizing that I had more mental stamina. I was able to go a little bit further. I even created a mantra for myself. Nothing positive comes from going negative. And I tell that to myself over and over. I still use it today. Staying positive was one of the biggest ways that I got through that time. Second lesson. We need to accept the uncertainty of life. Nothing is guaranteed. Life is going to come along and throw us a curveball, and it's going to be up to us how we react to it. That's what's within our control, how we adapt. Being able to adapt to those curveballs is one of the biggest indicators of success and happiness in someone's life. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when. And in that moment, and I'm not saying don't plan for the future, and I'm not saying you can't initially have a negative reaction to something, being disappointed, be angry, but I'm talking about after that. Nothing good comes from dwelling on this change that you have no effect on. It's wasted energy. The third thing I'm going to tell you, though, is the most important lesson I've learned. If you truly want to reduce your stress level, you need to focus externally. You need to help other people. The stress-reducing effects of helping somebody else are unbelievable. Two things are going to happen. One, you're going to take that load around your neck and you're going to set it aside for a little while. You're going to focus your energy on someone else and kind of get a break from your own stuff. And two, you're going to feel happier. Helping people makes you feel happy. And I think we can all agree that happiness and lower stress levels go hand in hand. So I challenge you, as you leave this place, as you contemplate all the great advice you're going to hear tonight from all the different speakers, start thinking about how you can maybe apply this to your life. Now, I'm required to do these things. If I don't, I kind of bust out into my own personal breakdance. But you have a choice. You can choose whether or not you want to do this. You can choose to find those opportunities to help someone else. You can choose to add positivity to a negative situation. And you can choose how you're going to respond to that uncertainty that comes to your life. Thank you.
It's a big table over there. Beep.